Once upon a time, on the edge of a big, dark forest, there lived a little girl called Goldilocks. You've probably heard of her. If so, you will know these three things. She was small, her hair was all golden curls, and she looked like one of those very good children who never seem to get into trouble for anything. Well, the truth is that Goldilocks did get into trouble, quite a lot, in fact. Not because she was bad, but because her curiosity always got the better of her. Now, a little curiosity can be a wonderful thing, but too much and you have trouble. And Goldilocks had a lot more than too much. Her mother often worried about letting Goldilocks out of her sight, but sometimes the little girl would just ask one too many questions and stick her fingers into one too many pots of honey and peek under the lid of one too many saucepans, and her mother, unable to bear it any more, would send her out to collect firewood. This was just such a morning, and as Goldilocks slipped through the gate, her mother called after her, "Remember these three things. Don't stray from the path, be back in time for breakfast, and whatever you do, make sure you look after your little red shoes." "Oh, I will, Mother," called Goldilocks, and she meant it. Well, the bit about her little red shoes, anyway. Off Goldilocks skipped, picking a flower here and looking down a rabbit hole there, lifting up pebbles and peering into tree trunks. But all the while she remembered her mother's words and she stuck to the path. Well, at least until she saw a little bluebird pick up a snow-white feather and fly off into the trees. "Ooh," thought Goldilocks, "I wonder where he's going to with that feather." She couldn't help herself, and she ran off through the forest after him. So intent was she on following the bird that she didn't notice how far she'd gone, how thick the trees had become, until the bird was long gone and the path was well and truly lost. Goldilocks stood all alone in the middle of the forest. All Goldilocks could hear was the leaves rustling and the birds chirping and, well, something buzzing. "I wonder what is making that noise," she thought, and she followed the buzzing until she came to a clearing where the sun shone down. And there, right in the middle of the clearing, was a curious wooden cottage, and next to it 3 little wooden beehives, each of them surrounded by lots of buzzing bees. Bzzz, oh, bzzz. How strange to find a cottage right in the middle of the forest. I wonder why I've never seen this cottage before, thought Goldilocks, stretching up to peep into the tiny glass window. She had to stand on tiptoe, and even then she couldn't quite see, so she climbed on a flower pot, and her shoes got all muddy. "Oh dear," said Goldilocks, "I said I would look after my little red shoes. Perhaps whoever lives in this house will help me clean them." So she knocked on the door. There was no answer, so she peeped through the keyhole. "No one would mind if I had a look. I wouldn't mind if it was my house." So she turned the handle and slipped inside. "Hello," called out Goldilocks. "Hello, hello." But no one answered, and Goldilocks smiled, because secretly she had hoped no one would be in. "What a tiny, tidy little room," said Goldilocks out loud, and as she said so, she bumped into a bucket of apples which tumbled onto the floor. She didn't have a chance to pick them up because something rather curious caught her eye. "How strange," she said, stepping over the apples. there seemed to be 3 of everything. 1, 2, 3 chairs, and 1, 2, 3 bowls, and 1, 2, 3 spoons. And so 1, 2, 3 people must live in this little house. Well, she was almost right. You see, the tiny cottage did belong to 1, 2, 3 people, but surprisingly, if you didn't know already, 1, 2, 3 bears. A large father bear, a middle-sized mother bear, and a tiny weeny baby bear. I know, it's strange to have bears living in a wooden cottage, but this is a fairy tale, and strange things happen in fairy tales. Every morning the 3 bears liked to go for a little walk before breakfast. It really gave them an appetite, and it also gave their porridge a chance to cool, because everybody knows that bears do not like to burn their tongues. The bears never bothered to lock their front door, because who would walk into a bear's house uninvited? Well, the answer is someone who didn't know it was a bear's house. The porridge smelled very good, and Goldilocks was feeling rather hungry, and she looked at the table, and she looked at the door, and she looked at the table, and she looked at the porridge. One little taste would not be so bad. They won't even notice, not a taste from this large bowl. And picking up the biggest spoon, she dipped it into the biggest bowl. She said, too hot. Maybe this middle-sized bowl might be nicer. Oh no, too cold. How could anyone eat cold porridge? I've lost my little spoon. There it is. Perhaps if I just tried this smaller bowl, that might be better. In fact, it was just right. In fact, it was so just right that she had another bite, and another, and another. And until, oh dear, it was all gone. Oops, said Goldilocks. Well, never mind. There are 2 more bowls, and they can share. I would share if it was my porridge.
If you go down in the woods today, you're sure of a big surprise. If you go down in the woods